Welcome back to Economics YouTube channel. Okay, so how the banks create money, that's what we're looking at today. I don't know if you've ever wondered, how does money actually circulate? How do you get money in the economy? And well, the simple answer might just be banks print money. You see how banks actually print money? It's the central bank or the Federal Reserve Bank of any country that prints money. But then, even money supply is not increased in the economy by just printing money. How does money find its way into the economy? I don't know if there's any time that you've observed that them just start to see new notes in the economy. Just everywhere new notes. It could be, let's say you're a Nigerian, so it could be, let's say, 1,000 naira notes. Then you start having new 1,000 naira notes everywhere. So that means something has been done in that economy. Some new notes have been put into the economy. But is it that the central bank dumped it somewhere, maybe in an estate or something, and people are picking it up? But how does it actually happen that money finds its way into an economy? So that is what is bringing us to our topic today: how the banks create money. I don't think I need to stress myself on what banks are. Obviously, you must have come across, let's say, at least a bank today. All right. Unless you are seeing this video in the early hours of whatever day you are seeing it. Okay, so banks are just places where we keep our money, and that's like the most fun. That's the basic thing that banks are expected to do or to be. But in recent times, you have banks doing bigger things. Okay, they loan out funds, they serve as they are basically financial intermediaries. All right, in one way or the other. But let's not go into that. Then what is money? Money is basically something that is generally acceptable as a means of exchange. Okay, and then money has transformed over various periods. So there was in one of our videos I was trying to talk about types of money. You have commodity money, that is talking about money that has an intrinsic value, that besides the usage of whatever. Okay, let me describe commodity money at first. Commodity money is basically a commodity. It's a thing that has value in itself, besides the exchange that is being used to do. So let's say beads, for example, or cigarettes. These are things that you could use for other things, obviously. And there are periods in the period of there are periods of mankind where these things were used as a medium of exchange. All right, but in themselves you can use them to do in themselves you can a cigarette can be smoked, right? So if you are using cows as a means of exchange, a cow can be killed and eaten. All right, so this kind of money are what we call commodity money. But because of one or two troubles, they can decay. Some of them can decay, like if you are using animals, they can be too heavy, and so on and so forth. So money has evolved over time to something that we call a piece of paper today, and you then wonder, why is it that a piece of paper is accepted by everybody? And your simple answer would have been, it's probably because it is backed up by gold. Okay, and I'm talking about fiat money now, which is a type of money that we have all around here, across the globe. So if you're saying that it's because the money you're spending is backed up by gold, that is generally acceptable, then you're wrong. There was basically a time where the amount of money, talking about the money supply now, is backed up by an equivalence by gold of equivalent value in these banks or whatever. But today you don't have that. Banks don't really have this gold, or banks don't have gold at all to back up this money, to back up money in this contemporary period. So why we are accepting paper money that doesn't have any intrinsic value besides what is on it? So if I don't have a currency, I think that's bad. I should have had it. Okay, they have something in my pocket or so that I could use. So yeah, so this is I don't know if you can see clearly from there. This 200 naira Nigerian notes, Nigerian currency. So besides the 200 naira that is on this stuff, there's nothing else I can use. It's a piece of paper, so there's nothing else I can use this to do. Or maybe to just don't let me say what's on my mind. All right, let me see what's on my mind. So that's just it. So why do I accept this piece of paper, okay, as a means of exchange? Why do I part with my 200 naira goods to collect this thing that I can't use to do something else? Okay, it is simply because it has been declared a legal tender, and what that means is that the government of Nigeria has made it compulsory and unlawful for anyone to reject these notes as well as other notes and currencies as well as other notes as a means of exchange. So what I'm trying to say is that if someone presents a 200 naira to you to collect a good or to buy a service that is worth 200 naira, if you try to reject it, then that means it is against the law and we are going to face the wrath of the law for it. And that is basically why today fiat money is what we have everywhere. It is not backed up by gold in the real sense of it. It is backed up by something like is it like government authority or something? Yeah, that's what I would call it. Anyway, that's not a problem. So I've tried to describe money, and money has some interesting characteristics, like the kind of money that we are spending today. It is portable, it is divisible. That is, we have them in different currencies, different denominations. I just showed you 200 Nigerian notes. There is a 15 naira note, but there is a 5 naira note. Although currently it's close to being useless in Nigeria as at this particular date. So this is a 15 naira note. It's quite faded. Alright, so that means I could have the same 200 naira. I don't think this is good for a public video though. I could have the same 200 naira in terms of 15 naira in 4 places. Alright, and there is a 500 naira note and there is a 1000 naira note and so on and so forth. So that is what we mean by saying that money is divisible into different denominations. This kind of money, you can't do that for cows, obviously. Alright, money also has some interesting functions. The most fundamental one is that it's a means of exchange. So that is you can use it to buy something, to trade goods and services and so on and so forth. Then the next is it serves as a unit of account. That is, you could use it to quote prices. So when I say this phone is 70,000 naira, so I'm using a monetary amount to quote the price, 70,000 naira. So that's a unit of account. If I say this tuber of yam is 5,000 naira, so 5,000 naira, so I'm just quoting the price that way. Then it's also a store of value. That is, I can use money to store my purchasing power. So the 250 naira in my pocket, but I don't want to spend it today, I can keep it somewhere with the hope that I'll still be able to use it to buy a good or a service worth of 250 naira whenever I want to make use of it, provided that there is no inflationary pressure on the money, or let's say deflationary pressure as well. So I've in summary, I've spoken about money, how it's evolved, going through different types, and what do you call it now, the functions and 2 characteristics of money basically. Anyway, so today we are going into how banks create money. So for banks to actually create money, okay, let me quickly talk about money supply. So money supply, because we'll be going into it, money supply is just talking about the amount of money that the public holds. So it could be in terms of bank deposits, that is, okay, as you heard now, you probably have some cash, okay, in your bank, so that's part of money supply. And then there could be cash at hand as well, so that's the currency that you hold. So money supply is just the sum of those two major. There could be other things, but basically that's what money supply is. So the one you're holding in your the one that the bank is holding on your behalf, and the one that you are holding currently, then multiplied by or added to what every other person has in the economy. Okay, so that's money supply. So banks, actually, when I say banks, how do banks create money? I'm actually talking about how is money multiplied in the economy. Alright, how is money? Is it that they just print money out and so on and so forth? Okay, so let's start. Bank creates money from reserves. Okay, or let me say, no, don't let me say reserves. Banks creates money from excess reserves, that they have. And excess reserves, the reserve initially also come from the deposit of customers, bank customers. So if somebody deposits a certain amount of money with a bank, then a bank can create more money from that deposit. So when we say banks creating more money, we are talking about banks creating loans from an initial deposit. We are going to get there when we start talking about our dear friend and what she is putting into a bank. So I was saying that bank creates money from their excess reserves. So first, what is a reserve? A reserve is simply the amount of money that a bank has with the Federal Reserve Bank or the Central Bank of whatever country that it is in, plus the cash that the bank has at hand. Okay, so that's what a reserve is. Now, reserve is now divided into two. Okay, so I have a reserve. Reserves are the amounts of bank deposits that are held with the central or Federal Reserve Bank in addition to cash at hand. Okay, so it's not meant to be on cash at hand. So in Nigeria we have the CBN, which is Central Bank of Nigeria. Then you go to the US and you have the Federal Reserve Bank. Okay, so it's obviously the same thing. So now let me skip this. So I'm going to talk about reserves now. So there are two types. In fact, there are three types. So you have excess reserves, actual reserves, and required reserves. So what's are the differences between this? Excess reserve is simply the amount of money that a bank holds in excess or in addition to its required reserves. I apologize for that. Okay, now what's reserve? Obviously, I've defined what it is, but then what is required reserve? So required reserve is simply the minimum amount of money that the central bank requires the commercial bank to hold, with the amount of money that they did I define it somewhere? Okay, I've already defined it here. Reserves are the amount of bank deposits that are held with the central bank. So how do we get the reserve that a bank is meant to hold? So we have reserves is equal to reserve ratio multiplied by bank deposit. So that means out of a dollar or a naira bank deposit, there is an amount that has to be kept in reserves. Okay, and we obtain that amount through reserve ratio. So reserve ratio is just talking about the fraction of a bank deposit that must be kept in terms of reserves. So it's more or less, if you have a bank deposit of let's say 100 and the reserve ratio were let's say 20%, so we are talking about 20% multiplied by the bank deposit, which is 100. So that means what the bank then has in excess reserve in that case is going to be 80 instead of 100, because 20% of that money is already being saved as reserves with the central bank. So I'm talking about required reserves now. So why is it that the central bank wants commercial banks to keep some money in reserve? Why not loan out all of these funds? Now that is there are reasons for that. So one being, there could be a panic in the society. Something could just cause a panic that will result into a run on banks. All right, when people just start doing multiple withdrawals and everything like that. So if a commercial bank has a lot of reserve, okay, a lot of money in terms of excess reserve, or let's say required reserve, basically. So it could rely on that, it could rely on that to promote confidence in its in the bank itself or in the banking system. So when everybody comes and starts withdrawing and you have money to give them, that could to some extent also lower the panic that people have. Okay, my money is safe because okay, I can get my money. It's a different situation where you just hear that okay, Skybank is going down, and everybody just starts. You go to GT Bank in Nigeria, start withdrawing and everything like that. Then before you know it, the ATM machines are not dispensing again. Then you have a crowd in the banking lot trying to withdraw, and you just have these bank officials telling stories that you don't want to hear. There's no money on ground, something like that. So the central bank of a country makes sure that of every money that this commercial bank, the commercial banks have, keep social amounts of money in terms of reserve, because there could be something like this in the future, and we are trying to mitigate against that so that people still have confidence in the banking system. Now another thing is that there are loans that could turn out to become bad debt. Okay, and banks obviously don't have money of their own. It is simply whatever they have is simply what people deposit with them, which is a liability to them, obviously, and then they have to return this money on demand, okay, to the owners of this money. So when you then take some of the money, I was trying to say banks act as financial intermediaries. So you take money from people's savings, you loan them out to investors. Okay, now some of these investors may not be able to pay up. Okay, so how then do you restore confidence in the banking system when the owners of the deposit then come and make claims on their money? So if a bank has reserves, it could also help it in that kind of situation, to respond to people that wants their deposit on demand. All right, and those two reasons and other reasons are why the central bank requires that commercial banks have reserve. Now, have required reserves based on whatever reserve ratio that is in place. Now there are banks that could have reserves in excess of that, and that is why you have excess reserve here. That is besides what the central bank is asking of them on a regular basis. So they have more than that. So that's why we have excess reserve equal to actual reserves minus required reserves. So and I don't want to overflog this because I think the video is getting really long. Okay, so required reserve is if someone brings 100 naira into the bank, and the required reserve, the reserve ratio is 20%. So 20 times 100 is going to give us 20 right? So that goes into the required reserves. So that means what the bank has its actual reserve now is going to the whole 100 naira is its actual reserve, right? So minus what it is required to put in reserves with the central bank, 20 naira, and that means its excess reserve in that case is 80 naira. So it could make loans from the 80 naira that it has, not 100 naira. So is there anything that I have not spoken about? So reserve ratio multiplied by bank deposits, where reserve ratio is the ratio of bank deposits that must be held in reserves. Now bank deposit obviously is the amount of money deposited in a bank account. So we've spoken about excess reserves, being actual reserves minus required reserves, and banks actually create loans from their excess reserves until excess reserves equals 0. So once the excess reserve is already equal to 0, banks can no longer create money. No, so we are still going to, there's an example here which is saying how much money can banks create from MM's initial deposit of 100 naira at 20% reserve ratio. So we are going into this to understand all of these stories that I've been trying to explain since. Okay, so if excess reserve is, I was saying that what banks can create is actually from their excess reserve, what they have in addition to their required reserves. So what they have left after they've made allowances for their required reserves. So if this were equal to 0, so that means banks they have nothing to make loans out of. So let's say someone brings in 20 naira into this bank, and the required ratio is the required ratio is 100%, for example. We don't have that obviously, but let's just say it's 100%. So that means 100% of 20 naira is 20 naira. So there's an actual reserve of 20, and then the required reserves happen to be 100% of whatever money is deposited, which is also 20. So 20 minus 20 then gives us 0. So that means that bank can't create anything. Okay, so that's that about that. So now let's attempt this question in a bit.
Please like and subscribe.